Steve, you've been talking a lot about immigration out in Wisconsin. You mentioned what's going on in Springfield. You're seeing this firsthand in Wisconsin. What issue? Well, let's just start with that. Do you think immigration got its due last night as an issue?
Absolutely not. No. And that was very much by design, I'm sure, right? Because ABC and David Muir, they knew that that is a very vulnerable topic for Kamala Harris. You know, it is for any Democrat, but particularly her, because she was the border czar, even though they want to pretend she wasn't. And so she has particular vulnerability on that issue. It is either the number one or number two issue in every single poll. And I'm doing extensive polling of the battleground states. Sometimes inflation and economy is number one. Most of the time, though, it's immigration. And those are always the top two. And by the way, it's not even close for number three. I mean, so those are far and away the two biggest concerns, the two eyes.
And they're linked.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are. Inflation and immigration. And so, you know, an example of that. So I was just in Whitewater, Wisconsin, which is a town of only 15,000 people. There are over 1,000 illegal migrants, mostly from Nicaragua, who have showed up, who have descended upon small town Whitewater, Wisconsin, in central southern Wisconsin. They can't deal with it. They can't deal with it in financially.
How did they get there? How does 1,000, is that, are they bust there? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, bust and flown into, and you know, when these illegal migrants cross into the United States, they basically choose where they want to go, and then at taxpayer dime, they're sent there. And Whitewater, it has a college there. It has a UW Whitewater, University of Wisconsin. And so because of that, it's kind of a lefty town. And so they got, you know, very, very welcomed, at least at first, by town leadership, not by the citizens of the town. And once that starts, you know, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because their cousin's there or their friend from their hometown in Nicaragua is there. And they all start showing up. And it has become an incredible burden for this town. In the schools, for example, 20% of the children in public schools in Whitewater, Wisconsin, don't speak English. Now, if you're the greatest teacher in the world, how can you possibly teach a classroom effectively when 1 out of every 5 students doesn't even speak English? There's significant crime problems in town. And to your point about inflation and immigration being interlinked, they are showing up largely with vouchers that U.S. taxpayers are paying for their rent. It's not a big town. There's not a lot of housing supply. So guess what? Rents have skyrocketed for the American college kids, for the longtime citizen residents of Whitewater. This is happening 1,300 miles from the U.S. border. And so my hope is, I'm going to get this documentary out before the election. My hope is by exposing what's going on there, and showing that it's not rare. It's happening in Ohio. It's happening in Wisconsin. It's happening far away from the U.S. border in small towns across the country, that is going to convince enough persuadable people or lower propensity voters that they've got to get out and that they have to vote for Donald Trump because he will secure the border again. We didn't have this madness when he was president. It's unjust. It's not fair. It's not right what is happening there. And I can tell you from interviewing people and seeing it on the ground. One other factor that was really troubling to me, Sean, people in Whitewater, Wisconsin were afraid to even talk about it. A lot of people told me off camera, they would say, I can't stand what's happening here. They would tell me all the problems that they've had. They tell me they've gotten in car accidents with unlicensed, uninsured migrants driving around their town recklessly. But then they would also say, Sean, but I'm afraid to talk about it. I won't go on camera. I'm afraid of the social ostracism. I'm afraid of recriminations in the workplace. So there's an intimidation culture, unfortunately, that people like Kamala Harris and her allies have created in this country, and that has to stop. We've got to end that silencing of regular, sensible Americans who want to speak about the problems that have been unjustly inflicted upon them. And hopefully that's part of what this doc will do.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Grace, what issue? I mean, I felt like today's 9/11. I felt like national security got short shrift. Terrorism didn't get discussed. Energy, China, the debt. I mean, I was like, to Steve's issue, I mean, they checked a couple boxes. I mean, we got plenty of time to talk about race, climate change. What were the other?
A lot of abortion, obviously.
A lot of abortion.
Yeah.
I'm looking down here.
January 6th was a big one.
January 6th, yep. 1021 race came up. Obamacare at 1027. Climate
Obamacare.
change.
Like, what about inflation? What about the two biggest issues for voters right now are illegal immigration and inflation? And it was not even, a side note in this freak show of a debate. It was so pathetic. This is what the American people actually care about. And no, I thought, and again, that goes back to, you can't expect the moderators to put forward what the American people care about.
All right, Steve, before I want to get to the moderators, because I do want to talk about this, but is there another issue? You mentioned immigration, and I'm with you on this. because I think it's amazing. I also think, as a side note, CNN K-File did that story the other day about like culture. I got to put that one down because I felt like she does this whole thing about paying, and this ties in, illegal. She wants to pay for transgender surgeries for people who enter the country illegally, because that's, hey, I'm glad I'm working every day to help pay for that.
Right.
And yet they didn't touch it.
Right.
And I don't want to talk for suburban women, because I'm kind of not one. I could identify as one, actually, for the purposes of the show. But I feel like I hear that as an issue all the time from women, young moms, whatever, who say, I worry for my daughter, I worry about for my future daughter.
Right.
And yet nothing on that. And there was a lot of issues that I thought, wow, they got completely blown over.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And by the way, to that point, so I interviewed a mom yesterday in Whitewater. We're going to have to blur her face because she doesn't want to be identified, which, again, I think is tragic. But regardless, at least she came on camera with her identity protected and said that she fears for her own safety because of the dangerous migrants in her town, and she fears for her children. I mean, so this is real. I mean, this is tangible and sad. And
Steve, when you say safety, are they worried that their face or name gets out and that the migrant community would come after them? Are they worried about their neighbors?
Both. Yes, both. So more the social ostracism from their neighbors,
Right.
but then also worried about actual physical, violent recriminations from the migrants. Yeah, that's the reality there. And I mean, this is crazy in America. We shouldn't have to live this way in the United States, and we wouldn't if we had control over our border. And then the idea that on top of it, we should pay for sex change operations for these illegal migrants who come in. And by the way, kudos to CNN. I don't often praise my former employer, CNN, but you know what? Good for Aaron Burnett, who was the one who did that reporting, and the K-File to bring that out. And they were even astounded. And by the way, I will give you
the look. I played this yesterday. The look on Aaron Burnett's face, because Kaczynski has this in writing and audio. So it's like, You can't duck. You literally said it too.
Yeah. And by the way, I'll even give additional praise to CNN. In the Trump-Biden debate, I really believe that Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, who I don't think are fair journalists generally, but on that debate night, I thought they were really fair. I really believe that they were. And I think it's one of the reasons that Biden imploded, is he wasn't getting a helping hand from the media. And what a contrast, though, compared to last night, because then we saw from David Muir and ABC, the exact opposite. The media just reverting right back to their usual form and acting as a PR protection agency for the Democrat candidate.
Sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to interrupt, but they weren't fair on CNN because they're fair. They were fair because they wanted to get Joe Biden out. And I have no doubt that if they were hosting Kamala versus Trump, they would have done pretty much the exact same thing. The moderators... But what the moderators really did, and a lot of people pointed this out last night, you screwed Trump, and it was an ambush, but it was such a failure on the part of the American people. Like we were looking for answers, and to your point, Sean, about her woke agenda, she's now claiming, and Bernie Sanders has said it too, like, oh, she's just pumping the brakes right now. And then once she gets in the White House, she's going to ramp up all this crazy leftist ideology. This would have been a great time to say, do you feel that way? Do you still support transgender surgeries for people in detention centers? Yes or no? And there was no follow-up. There was no holding her to task on any of these things. And
how about the fact that she said, there were two other things that I thought were fascinating. One is she said, I'm going to explain all my flip-flops when it came to the issue of and then she didn't, and they didn't follow up. And when Trump pointedly asked her, and this is the key question on abortion, okay, well, what's your limit? How late will you allow abortion? She was like, I word salad, I eat this. And they literally like, okay, next subject. They gave her the out. It was an assist. And I just want to say this one quick thing, because I'm going to forget it if I don't. Your point about CNN, Grace, is critical to understand. They did their job, and their job was to help push East Biden out.
Right.
And I don't like to do this because I don't try to be I told you so guy, but I've been saying this for a while. ABC had a mission last night. This is like the border wall. Everyone says they're not doing their job at the border wall. Yes, they are. They know exactly what they're doing. They're letting people in because they want them to vote. This is not like when people say they're not, doing their job. You misunderstand what they think their job is. And last night, ABC did its job. ABC got the message. I've been saying this for weeks. They knew they are the last known wall. Like, who knows if we'll have another debate or not. And their colleagues and their friends and the left said, David Muir, Lindsey Davis, it's up to you guys.
Yeah.
Take them out. It's like the old Karate Kid. Yes, sensei, sweep the knee, baby, because this was it. They had to do their job. And everybody says, oh, they were biased and they didn't. No, they got the message. Message received. Take Trump out, make it 3-on-1 on stage, do whatever you have to do, help her, hurt him.
Yeah, and one other thing too that I couldn't help but notice is she loves this new way forward. That's part of her policy proposals now, is the new way forward, the new way forward. So when it comes to holding her to account for anything she's done as a senator, as a vice president, then it's all about, hey, new way forward. That's in the past. MoveOn.org. We're looking ahead. When it comes to Trump, it's like, let's rehash January 6th for the 15th time tonight. There's no new way forward for Donald Trump. And what ended up happening was it started to feel like he was the incumbent and she was this change candidate. And that's what really ticked me off, because there were so many things that, and I thought about this the other day. I said, imagine going in. I wish I had tried this before, but imagine being in like a private company and going to the CEO and they're doing your performance review and they go, you've kind of run this company into the ground and our numbers are down and everything. And you say, listen, it's all about the future. It's all about the new way forward. I would like a promotion and I would like my own parking spot and I would like a corner office. Thank you very much. I don't want to talk about the past. That's not how real life works. No other job in this country would you get promoted for that.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. That's a great, can you be like, can we just stop talking about the past, please?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the future. Like, I have a feeling like I may try that. Walk in one day and be like, guys, I know you're talking about last year's sales numbers, but I'm focused on the future.
Right.
So I'd like more money and I'd like to just keep I want to turn the page.
Yes.
No, it's a great comparison, because she wants to enjoy the benefits of incumbency, right? Of being the sitting vice president of the United States, but without the burden of owning the record of being the vice president of the United States.
What's her line? I want to be unburdened by that which burdened me.
And when she says that, Sean, if I can make a point here, because a lot of us on the right correctly mock her, right? Because she says it so often and it just sounds so flowery and a ridiculous platitude. But I think there's actually some sinister meaning there. I really do. Because I think she actually means that when she says it. And when you say that we are unburdened by our past, what you're really saying is, philosophically, we reject what America has been. We reject the greatness that America has achieved. So I view that line as a far more sinister threat, really, to the United States, of we're going in this entirely new direction that is unconnected to the success that America has enjoyed for centuries. And I believe in her heart, that's probably where she is, because she is a Marxist, even though she's hiding her Marxism presently with a lot of help from the corporate media. And the corporate media also, by the way, didn't hold her to account for some just ludicrous lies last night, a lot of them. But the worst one from my perspective, because it's a topic that I've spent years trying to debunk, is the Charlottesville hoax. And she repeated it again. Biden used it in his debate. She used it now in her debate. No fact checking from the media, not live, not later, not afterward. This issue could not be more crystal clear. Even Snopes, which is a very lefty fact checking site, even Snopes now admits it was 7 years too late, but even they admit that it is a complete lie, that Trump never praised bigots. As a matter of fact, the complete opposite. He explicitly condemned them at Charlottesville, and yet she brought it up again last night.
She knew exactly what she was doing.
Giant audience. She knew she wouldn't get fact checked, and now millions of more people probably believe that lie, that Trump praised bigots in Charlottesville, when the opposite is true.
To your point, Steve, that's the thing. She does it. She knows if you can get away with something, you do it, right? I mean, that's all the time you talk to someone. Why did you do it? Well, because I could get away with it. I want to cover two more things, kind of, because there was something fascinating that happened at the end of the debate that, again, I love these kind of inside baseball things. Two things happened that were unique. One, her camp that was claiming that they killed it immediately called for another debate. Now, generally speaking, the person who calls for the debate is the person who's behind the curve and they just want more debates. I thought it was interesting that Brian Fallon and her team immediately said yes, and Trump wavered. Number two, Trump went to the spin room. He hasn't done that since 2016. And I usually tell a candidate, let your debate performance stand on your own unless you have something to clean up. both of you, tell me, let's just answer this question first, because this is the easy one. Will there be a second debate, yes or no?
Well, I don't think so. I really don't. I hope so. I think it'd be good for the country, but I don't think so.
I agree.
I don't think so either. And I heard Trump today on Fox, and he said, they were asking about Martha McCallum and Brett Baer, and he said, I don't want to do a debate with them. And I don't blame him, because when you think about how in the bag ABC was and David Muir and Lindsey Davis for Kamala Harris, Martha McCallum and Brett Baer, it's not the equivalent. The equivalent would be to have a far right, like a Jesse Waters do the debate, and that's not going to happen. But that would be the only way.
Yeah, and for people, like, there's two things that I want people to understand. Number one, she'd never agree to that, right? We all know that. Kamala Harris won't ever even agree to one with Fox. Even if David Muir got a contract with Fox, she'd say no.
Right.
And that's not going to happen. But secondly, I know from my conversations with Fox over the year, and I ran the debates in 2016, they will not let a non-news person do a debate. It's like church and state to Fox. So right. I know what he wants. Number one, Fox won't give it to him. And number two, she won't give it to him. And so that's okay. I think we're generally in agreement, though, that I don't see how another one happens. I will say this. I think she's going to try to taunt him. And that's where I would be careful, because Trump, I think at some point says, all right, I'll go anywhere, do anything. And I think that could be interesting. All right. I don't know that you guys saw this coming as the last thing that I wanted to talk about, but I'm going to, because I think there's something fascinating about this. I was a little taken back by the Taylor Swift endorsement at the end. And I'll tell you why. I don't really care. First of all, if you're dumb enough to care who Taylor Swift wants you to vote for, then God bless. I mean, then you got bigger problems. But I thought the timing was stupid. And here's why. If this happened, today's Wednesday, if this happened Thursday or Friday, she would have gotten attention, and it would have been the story in the morning. Taylor Swift and a cat endorsed Kamala Harris. She stepped on herself by endorsing him as everyone was spinning about the debate. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of coverage of it. And I also don't think it's unexpected. I mean, she's a lefty. So I don't think it matters. And I also think it was stupid timing, Grace.
Yeah, I didn't really get the timing. I think the point of the timing, if I had to try to figure out what their strategy was to make it seem like, because she started by saying, I just watched the debate, to make it seem like this was such a slam dunk for Kamala Harris that now I feel
this was so authentic and not
right.
Scripted.
That I feel the need to tell you all that this is who I'm voting for. I don't know what it does. I'm always confused by celebrity endorsements, whether or not they move the needle. I tend to think they don't. Obviously, she's a different kind of celebrity. She's in a different stratosphere. So that's something to consider. But I will say this, and this is just something that I was reflecting on. Brittany Mahomes has made comments in the past that she's a supporter of conservative values, or, I didn't even really look into the story. I know she liked to tweet about JD Vance or something like that. And then there was all this pushback that was the reason Taylor Swift wasn't sitting with Brittany Mahomes, was because she's mad, she's a Trump supporter. And I remember thinking, that's so lame, that's so disappointing that, these two women who are friends. And then it turns out they're at the US Open, they're hugging, it's wonderful. And I said, oh, that's so nice that they have different political views and they can still be friends. And then Taylor Swift comes out with this endorsement, and my instinct is to be like, ugh. But that's the country we live in. And she wrote in her statement, which I did find interesting, I did my research. This is who I'm voting for. I encourage you to do your research, and then you chose who you're voting for. So I find myself in some moments being very hypocritical.
By the way, I thought that I got asked about that last night. I think that was totally her business people came to her and said, you're going to piss off half the country with this. At least give it a caveat that, you should make up your own mind so that we don't piss away billions of dollars. That's how I looked at that.
It probably was like a conservatives buy sneakers too moment, but I did think to myself, it's funny how when Brittany Mahomes said something, I thought, well, good for her, for her politics. And then when Taylor does it, I'm like, so just.
Oh, Taylor does it. It's awesome. Brittany Mahomes does it. Is she going to be forgiven? Steve, I got 20 seconds.
That's life.
Yeah. Steve, in 20 seconds, how much is this affecting your vote?
Yeah, listen, I don't think the endorsement matters at all. I will say this, though. If she starts actively campaigning, if she starts singing, if she starts doing concerts in the swing states, that absolutely could matter. So let's
I don't think she will.
I do. She can get people to vote. Yeah, I don't want to dismiss it. I think Steve's right. If she actively starts getting people to engage, I think that could have enough of an effect. Remember, it's not a ton. Could have enough. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.